Okay, guys, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the show, Paul. You guys combined probably have 100 years of experience in the line trade and the line industry. So I'm, like I said before, I want to focus on I'd love to focus on like a then versus now kind of episode, because I haven't had too many people on that have been around as long as you guys had in the industry. I think the last person I had on the show that had been in this long was Red Dog, Don McLennan. Yeah, some wisdom and experience from many moons ago. So, welcome to the show. Get into this one. I like I was saying before as well. I like to run these in like chronological order. Kind of find out who you were, where you came from, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But let's start with this one. What's something that I could know now about your past, about, say, when your youth, what's something from your youth that would help me understand who you are today?
Oh man, I don't know.
It was many moons ago.
Yeah, so far along. Yeah, I don't know.
Where do you come from? Like what
I grew up in Victoria. Yeah, I was born and raised in Oak Bay, and moved to Royal Oak, and grew up out in that area, out in Royal Oak, Caribou Bay area. And used to just be a regular kid, riding bikes.
Like what's growing up on the island? It's like Victoria's Vancouver Island, for anyone out there that doesn't understand where that is, off the coast of British Columbia. What's it like growing up in that area?
Oh, it was great. We were, like I say, grew up in, so I was raised in Oak Bay, and then grew up in Royal Oak, which is out in the country. So we had lots of room to move. Farmland, pretty much. Okay. And we all had dirt bikes, and we used to dirt bike to school and back all the time, and just hung out, and I just lived a really good life. We had no dangers or traffic or anything, and lots of vegetable gardens that we used to raid all the time, and it was a really nice place. We grew up in the best years of life, I think, in 70s, 80s. You couldn't beat it,
Before anybody could track your every movement.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Before cell phones and computers and all that kind of stuff, and just lakes everywhere. So we'd be all over the place. I remember as a kid, berry farms all around the place. So we'd go out, pick strawberries, of course, load up on strawberries, plus make $2, and then we'd hit the penny store and go get all our candy and stuff, and then head up to the lake, and then spend the day at the lake. And then of course you had to be home for dinner. You couldn't be late. And head back on our bikes, and it was not a care in the world. Yeah. It was beautiful. Yeah.
So I took these guys in the Jeep the other night, out in the back here. Took them to the gravel pit that we used to ride dirt bikes at, and kind of just drove around a little bit. And I was like, "This is all Crown land." And I mentioned Crown land to people in Texas, and they look at me sideways because, like, I think 100% of Texas is owned. So, and there's no public land, or you definitely can't just wander around on any land. And I'm like, that's what I spent my entire childhood, just riding dirt bikes out as far as I wanted to go. And not being, bothered by anybody or even seeing anybody. Yeah, it's a cool way to grow up.
Yeah, like you say, there's so many lakes around. That was the cool thing. You could travel to lake and do a little fishing and a little swimming. And
what did mom and dad do?
Dad was a lineman. Mom was a housewife back in them days. She's busy. We had there was 8 kids in our family, so that was a big job to keep it.
8 in your family.
Yeah, there was 8 in our family. So it was when we sat down at dinner time. There was a lot of stuff going on, but Dad was very strict. There was hats off. There was no phone calls, no door knocking or nothing. Dinner time was dinner time, and everybody was quiet and ate their dinner, and you finished your meal. And you asked to be excused from the table, and you got up and cleaned your dish, and out the back door you were on the bike, and away you went again. And
were mom and dad born and raised Canadian?
Yes, yeah. Dad was born in Saskatchewan, and mom was born in actually France, and then moved to Montreal. She was a French Canadian.
No kidding.
And I remember Dad, all the buddies would come by, because I remember when they would go to work, the big truck would come in, and all the guys would load in the truck and head out to work. And when I was old enough, I would tag along with them. I got to ride on the back of the truck, and we used to haul poles and material. And I was always fascinated by the little pill box in the back of the truck, which was a salt pill and the little jug of salt pills and the jug of water. And then they always carried another water flask on the front of the truck. but I'm sure it wasn't full of water back in them days.
No kidding. Right?
Yeah.
There's one of those then versus now things
Yeah.
for sure.
Keeps it cool when
yeah.
you're driving down the road.
Yeah. So I remember clearly in my mind, up in the Highlands, just out of Victoria, building power line, and I would go with Dad to work, and I would just sit off on the side and watch all the guys, and they all knew me, and I would just kind of run around getting them stuff and helping out. And
I'm often like, I wonder what people that came from Saskatchewan to British Columbia, like what drove them across and like what brought them to BC, because I've also worked in Saskatchewan, and it's like talking to people that are established in the flatlands. They're always like, I could never move to BC. It's too claustrophobic. I couldn't be in the mountains. And I'm like, the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I feel claustrophobic in the wide open spaces.
Yeah.
What brought him across?
I don't know. I think it was just like his family all moved. Most of his family moved over, and they resided in like Duncan, which is just north of Victoria. And there was Duncan, and then out Souk, which is on the west coast more, up just a little north. And it's Victoria was, back in those days, was a pretty beautiful spot. It still is a beautiful spot. Just, I feel it's just kind of overpopulated at this point. But yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, I remember days and days playing in the pole pile, and how dangerous pole piles are. We used to whip around the pole piles and underneath them and chasing all the marmots.
Nobody lost a foot?
No.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, it was pretty neat. And then as years went on, I was working, various jobs as a kid. I worked at a sporting goods for about 5 years, building bikes and repairing bicycles. And then I got to the age where I could had a driver's license, and then went back to work in the line trade, and basically used to haul poles and deliver poles and transformers and stuff like that, and spent many years doing that. And then till finally they didn't really have a real good apprenticeship program back in those days, so there was really nowhere to go if you wanted to be. So I was, when my turn came and they got a program going, it was myself and another fellow by the name of Les Ketty were on the first on the block, and we were the first apprentices in a long time, because most of the linemen that were in Victoria were from Manitoba or Ontario, and BC really didn't have a structure other than BC Hydro, at that time. And so then we started our apprenticeship, and it was a little different. There's not too many rules and regulations to what you could and could not do as an apprentice. I remember being up in the bucket probably about 6 months doing single phase primary, and with the hard hat hanging on the hook on the side, and just a little wife beater t-shirt on. The rules and regulations weren't as strict, and we knew what was what, but it was different. No fall arrests back in those days.
What year was this in?
That would have been in 1979.
Dang.
Yeah, it would have been 79. And I topped out in 83, but had done massive amounts of power line work, like live work. We did quite a few conversions in Oak. We converted all Oak Bay. That was a 3-year conversion. Spinning glass to transformers to pole changes, installing switches to isolate certain areas to convert little pockets at a time. And did lots of that. A lot of guys didn't know about conversions back in those days too, doing all your dual voltage transformers and insulating for the new voltage moving forward. But
and that type of work's really unique too. It's like real artful,
It is.
Like, because I imagine the conversions you do, like you're dealing with live conductor, you're keeping everything hot, right? Distribution, fanning it out.
Other than the transformer changeouts, of course. But,
But even the transformers, you're keeping them, hot for
Yeah.
as much as you can before you got to do the converting part.
And
right?
back in those days too, we didn't have buckets. Well, we did have one bucket, but it was spread amongst 4 crews. So if you're on the transformer crew, you're on the hooks all day long, and we just rotated, because we had a 3 journeyman linemen. So you'd change out and run the boom for a bit, and you do your 10 transformers a day. And then it depended if you worked the high side or the low side. One guy'd go up and do all the cutout work and do the high side, and the other guy would do the low side. And then when you finish the high side, you just kind of position yourself ready to re-energize, about 2 feet away from the transformer.
See, a lot of people don't do these type of reconductors anymore.
No.
Like reconductors or conversions or whatever, but that's what you're doing. A lot of people don't do them hot anymore.
No.
Like they take outages for the whole stringing portion of it. So they're not fanning live conductor out and setting up for, and real, like, that's the art, right? Like really planning for where your new conductor is going, how you're going to pull it in, how you're going to, like, swap it all
I can
over.
see a full circle coming now because of, like, we're going to electrification stuff we're going to do now. So remember, Robin, when we worked years with the interior, we did all those reconductor, booting out, stringing in. There's going to be a lot more of that now because the demand for the power is going to, they're going to create more new feeders and stuff. They're going to have to.
Yeah.
So I could see lots of that coming back, and a lot of the guys haven't done much of that work. It's not, once you get into it and learn the tricks of the trade in that aspect, it'll go good. But it was a bit of a trait when I came up here. I'd done lots in Victoria, and then I came up and worked for Robin, and we had at that time, I guess it was about the 90s, early 90s,
90s,
we did lots of fanning out, like Broadway and all that kind of stuff, So it's doing a full circle again. I can see it coming again.
Interesting.
Well, they've got a lot better equipment now, a lot better tools, better buckets and jibs and live line equipment that you can fan out and all that now.
Yeah.
A lot better than the stuff we first started using back in the 80s.
Yeah. We, epoxy arms were at a premium back in the days. Stringing equipment was at a premium. And, to have a lot of money invested in a puller and travelers and epoxy arms for maybe 2 months worth of work a year, it was, that was a big thing to do,
It's funny that when you were first starting in the 70s there, you were with Human Rumble, I believe.
Yes.
And then Churchill got all of their equipment, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then I ended up buying all that equipment.
Yes.
And then you ended up coming up working for me. And then we ended up using all that same old equipment there when we were doing all our work back in the 90s.
I remember as a kid packing all the epoxy arms on the racks on the walls not to damage them. And we used the porcelain insulators at that time because they didn't have the little plastic ones that we use here. And I remember putting all that away and clean.
We had bins
and
bins of that stuff.
Yes.
Then we had to get all the arms refinished and get them all tested, and it was good.
And like I say, there's a lot of money tied up for if you only did one job a year. And
I remember
the puller,
in the shop that we had just racks and racks of those things. 100.
And the cost of travelers. Travelers nowadays, man.
I found like, maybe I'm wrong, but like little companies used to do better, like working with each other as well, right? Like if you got like a big stringing job and you didn't have 8 crews to go tackle that, you get together with another local company and kind of tag team it. Or if you had the traveler equipment but you had 3 bucket trucks, like let's get together. There was a little bit more of that. You don't see that anymore.
It's the efficiency level between a small company, they call them the mom and pop companies, the efficiency level and the familiarity of the equipment and the tools and everything involved was 10 times better than what you have.
And the guys too, and the crews.
Yes.
And everybody looked out for each other.
And I always look back at how we operated when we had Jerry Rector with us back in those days. Mm-hmm. We ran a very tight ship. Yeah. We didn't lose tools. We wore tools out. We didn't break things. We wore things out. We didn't have lots of money, so we were kid gloves on everything. Yeah. Like I say, the efficiency was second to none. And we knew what everybody was doing back in them days. Yeah. Today, you mix and match crews. I go work with, say you haven't worked with you for 10 years, don't even, new guy. It's that kind of feel the guy out mode. And, there's a lot of good guys. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of really good guys out there. But at the efficiency level was way different. Way different.
I find like companies don't work together. Like, unless you're owned by the same big company or something, they don't tag team on things other than storm work, like Storm's the only place where, like small outfit, jumbles up with a bigger outfit. Okay. Like let's support this. Let's put some more numbers at it, go down,
They used to tag up, back in the days before it was The Rock, more so. I found that we worked with Wayne Roberts and, we worked around, we shared out guys and stuff. And I had Bridge Creek Power at that time, and if Robin needed a hand, and Jerry and I would come up, and vice versa. I remember Dave coming down and helping us, and a few guys helping us out. That made it pretty cool doing that. And we were all familiar with each other's limits and, and stuff like that.
Back in the 90s, though, like there was 50 contractors in this province, right? And that's when we formed the LCA, and there was about 12 founders, all the companies that got together and put it together. And it was before the internet. So the internet changed everything.
Yes.
When, there was local work contracts, and there was like, I forget how many, 65 district offices in BC Hydro's districts, right, in around the province. So every contractor had a town, and they kind of looked after that town and all the industries in it and everything like that. But when the internet came along and they started putting all the contracts on the net, and then guys were bidding all over the place, the companies started to grow. Some of them grew bigger, and they were moving crews around. The trucks got better.
Yes.
So you could actually drive from town to town.
Yes.
Instead of that old 390
and reach stuff. Yeah.
So anyway, so the equipment got better, the internet changed it all, and then of course when the rock contract came out, that solidified it. They down to 6 contractors or something like that, and that sort of put a lot of the smaller guys out of business, and it was a sad thing, but it is what it is. Now, when we were all small, and like you say, if there was a sizable job in an area, we'd gang up with Twin River or ESC or Ridge Creek, and then we'd all get together and do the job, and then everybody go their merry way, and you each look after your own town kind of thing, and nobody stepped on each other's toes, and it was all good. But I don't know. It changed. It changed. Contracting changed. Hydro changed it a lot over the years. I mean, we had a single emergency line agreement that all the contractors worked under, all the same number, so nobody was trying to outdo another in an area. So, and then they had unit prices, and the unit prices were kind of across the board. Everybody had similar unit prices. So Hydro's ability to manage it was pretty good, I thought, but then it was a little difficult to manage 50 contractors and all their safety programs and everything. And so things changed there too. Like safety got to be a lot bigger issue after a few things happened, and so that's why I think it all was forced to change through the management of it by BC Hydro.
Streamlining probably saved them, or does save them, I'm sure, massive amounts of paperwork.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Robin, you were on the show before. Give some context as to like a little bit of history and background and what you did in the last few years.
Where do I start?
It's extensive, I know.
We want to be here a couple hours. I don't know. It's going back. We started. I started in electrical in 1975. Took an apprenticeship as an electrician and topped out in 1980. And then we started our own business the year you were born in 1981. And so that was a bad time to start in a way.
What made it
we hit a recession right away.
Yeah.
2 years into it, massive recession of the early 80s. So we started in a time when you really had to be frugal and pinch all your pennies and do everything as quick as you could, as best as you could, and then build a business on that. And we did good. We did electrical work for a few years. We had a pretty good sized group going, and then it started to electrify. Like Paul was right. Like the apprenticeship in line trade, pretty much ended about 1981 as well for Hydro. And so there was only a few line companies around. And the world was starting to build off the recession and electrifying the whole north here. So there was a lot of line work coming. So I could see that. So I started hooked up with a backhoe operator named Jack Bradshaw, who was a good friend, and he between the two of us, we put together a little line crew and started doing stinger lines, single phase all over the country, and private property work. There was a lot of people moving into the country, all the lake country around 100 Mile and Williams Lake here. So we got going on that, and it just started to build. So we started buying equipment and hiring guys out of the hall. Well, in 1988, the union made a push around the province to get all the small contractors signed. So we signed, and then we were able to get linemen out of the hall and bring them in, and then we were doing jobs. So I was basically keeping track of all my hours at the time over the 80s, because there was no apprenticeship program, no school to go to or anything like that. And so I just kept a log on all my work. I was bidding the jobs and working on them as an apprentice, although I had the ticket and the A ticket and the electrical ticket to do the work. They weren't really classifying linemen as a designated trade in the time. So we were working on it. I'd work on all the jobs with the guys, and like you said, there was no real restriction. PSS, like SPRs or PSSB, were just coming in, and Hydro was just kind of managing it as best they could. But in this country, we were just pretty much wide open until in '89 they put on the first the union put on the first training center and
Right, I remember that,
and
yeah.
school, and so I was part of that program. Got a ticket in '89 to be a lineman, and then just built the business after that. I took on a partner and Rob Mitchell, and we had a good little company going there, and built that, and then we separated, and then I just took Interior Power to started buying companies. I bought 7 different companies, I think, over the next 20 years, and buying equipment,
Build up your equipment and tools and manpower.
Yep.
I always tell
hired all
people,
the hockey players I trained to be linemen.
I always tell people that story. Like that's what I find super unique, and people don't realize, like, you're an apprentice, owned the company, was bidding the work, hiring people hiring linemen out of the hall. And essentially you
stand on the ground
bid the
while I'm
work
in the
that they were doing.
So that
Was the apprentice and the company business owner, putting up all the, like,
Had all the bases covered pretty much, right?
Yeah, but that's when I had good guys, Dave Fossa and yourself and Jerry and all Dave
Jorgensen.
like Jorgie, all these guys. We had a really good crew, really good guys that worked hard together, and everything, and good guys that we hired that taught me how to do it too, right?
Yeah.
I try to get people to understand that it's not all fancy when you start, like you got to start from some humble beginnings sometimes. And sometimes it's tough, and you got to push through some tough times. Cause, like, I think unless it's handed to you on a silver platter a lot these days, with like the new guys coming in, they're not willing to fight for anything. It's like a lot of them say, I can't get a job in this trade. There's no union hall in my town. I'm like, well, have you thought about moving to somewhere where there's some work and a potential? Like, it might be a few states over or whatever.
That's
but
why
like,
we're here in this country, because that's where the work was at the time.
Right.
So we moved from Vancouver up here because just
And especially if you're a contract lineman, you will be moving.
yeah.
It's different as a utility, but if you're contract, you chase the work.
Yeah.
And it'll always be that way.
I tell another story of a guy I've had on the show a couple times, Ben Holmes, and Ben was at the Lineman Rodeo. He was trying to get into the industry, and striking out in like California. And he was at the Lineman Rodeo, and he happened to talk to somebody from Local 66 out of Texas. And they were like, shit, we're looking for guys, but you got to be here Monday. We're starting this thing up on Monday. And this was like Saturday at the rodeo. He left Saturday night, flew home, got in his truck and trailer, drove it to Texas the next day, showed up Monday morning for work. Like, that's what it takes sometimes. And now he's in it. He's back in California now. Life's all good. He's got a family and works as a lineman there. But like, sometimes you got to pack up and move to where you can get a start, right?
get the opportunity. You got to go.
Yeah.
Well, I know as an apprentice, I was living out of a handbag, back in them days. I remember moving equipment around, and just the way it worked out, hitchhiking with my line bag on Vancouver Island, heading from Nanaimo to Victoria, and because it's just the way that the fleet worked out that week, and I had no ride home, so I'm on the side of the highway hitchhiking with my hard hat and a line bag. I got a ride right away, but
at least you look like
man. Look at that nowadays and be like, Crazy. Yeah. It was and lived in every little town, because we had conversions and or pole changes or stuff. Okay, we're going to Qualicum, that was a long ways up the island back in them days, or over to Port Alberni for did a conversion there. Spent 3 months there. So. You followed the work. It was all good. It was good. Had a lot of fun times.
I know your dad was a lineman, but what made you want to get into the trade?
Well,
what made you decide?
As soon as I saw it, I hung out with all the guys. My godfather was the manager of Human Rumble, and then it turned into Commonwealth back in those days. And George Songhurst was his name. And it was just something I did. And I was on a set of hooks going up and down a pole like nothing, and it was natural. It was just. I liked the mechanical part of it too, the wrenches and stuff. And I was always good because they always tested me. They'd put a bolt in the pole and reach around and put the nut on. Well, I had that fine tuned where some of the linemen took a bit,
Yeah.
And I knew a lot of guys that I just had the mechanical, and I was good at physically, just a skin and bone little guy. I could fly up and down poles like crazy. I remember. Lots of times we were stripping out street light control wires on the island, which was the little conductor just above the newt. Yeah. And it was on a gray insulator, and it worked from a transformer around the corner, and it would feed all the lights. And stripping out that conductor was number 6. So we just up the pole, we'd go, nip it down, and down you go. And we did 130 some odd spans, just me and Robbie Jack one day. And then Robbie Jack, who's since passed, super nice guy, worked for Hydro for years. But anyways, he kicked out, come down the pole, broke his wrist. So I called Dave's dad, Emilio, who come over and ran him down to the hospital. And Emilio came back, and then Emilio and I carried on for the afternoon. Didn't miss a beat. But we were free climbing pretty much. You just had on belt, come around the towel and just reach up and you could nip it down. Mm-hmm. And then you'd cut a whole street down and then take your belt off. But you never took your hooks off, but rolled all the wire up, because that was beer money back in them days, lots of beer money. And but we never, I remember sitting at lunch, sitting on the tailgate of a pickup truck, hooks on, you didn't take them off till the end of the day. And like I say, we only had the one bucket at that time. And it was cool. I could see how a lot of guys did get hurt from climbing, bad backs, falling, kicking out, gashing. A couple of guys, Kevin Brown, and I forget the other fellow's name, but Kevin was above him, and Kevin kicked out, and the guy went to reach for him, and he got gaffed down his arm really bad, and then Kevin landed and broke his hip. Mm-hmm. But that was no fall arrest back in them days, that like the pole hugger, and nobody had second belts. And
but the only time you used that second belt was cutting something with a chainsaw.
Well, and half the time you never had a second belt for that either, because you were below the towel usually if you're topping the pole, If you got into cutting your belt, you probably took your leg off too, so you might as well just fell anyway.
I never belted in until you got above the transformer or wherever you were going.
But
get by everything else first and then belt in.
I can see how a lot of lives have extended in the trade because of using bucket trucks and stuff now, and the equipment is so good nowadays. That's the most advancement.
Had a guy on the show from Fall Tech. It's an upcoming. They make fall arrest devices and things like that. And some of the tech that they're putting into the belts even now that change positions as you change. So as you get up to working position and you can almost sit into it like it's a chair, but it's not, it's not any extra weight. You think, it's big and bulky but no, it's all designed nicely, like actually ergonomically designed. It's
they've come a long way including mountain climbing and all that rigging stuff into the line trade, because it was pretty rustic before. It was pretty
the snaps didn't even have the locks on them. Nothing before.
I'd heard numerous stories. I never witnessed
the thing would pop off.
Where guys would clip into their pliers. I'd heard of it, but I never witnessed. But when I clipped in, I always confirmed, I was clipping in.
Yeah, it's all here mentally. Yeah.
And then and you learn as an apprentice, don't use the hardware. Don't rely on the hardware. Oh man, I used hardware steady. Hardware is my best friend to get around the pole on.
Yeah.
And I always disagreed with that theory, but I always used clevises and stuff and bolts and
I think you got to really look at it, have a look at what you're grabbing first before
of
you just grab
course.
it, right?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
of
that,
course.
that's where it
Everything
comes
up
from.
first.
Some,
Yeah,
just
yeah, oh
starts
yeah. You always double checked your stuff. You didn't do anything blind, you know. I didn't anyways. I always was very cautious. I always checked my pole out. I looked for checks in the pole. I always looked for hardware. Like I remember one day I kicked out to come down a pole. I was coming down the pole at the end of the day, and I stepped on a large, like a 3/4 flat washer, and it kicked out, came down, and skinned my face up pretty good. But I was like, yeah, you idiot. What were you thinking? But yeah, if you respected climbing, you did well.
You came from Vancouver Island, so the island, ocean, farmland. What brought you to why north? Why go north into rural?
That was a kind of a weird thing because I'd never been north of Cache Creek in my life. I was a total island boy. And I came up one weekend to 100 Mile and looked around and went, wow, this place is pretty cool. And I really enjoyed all the lakes and the farms and stuff like that. Yeah. And thought, you know what? Time for a change. I need to try something different. And bought a big ranch out in Forest Grove and did the farming thing for about 18 years, ranching. And that was a cool thing. Learned lots, seen lots of beautiful things, and so I enjoyed that. And the work up here was good. And then I went back to Victoria after spending about a month up here and just kind of hanging out. And was working downtown Victoria, and we were working on a reconductor at that time, and we were working right by the hospital. And I remember the ambulances just coming, and we were up in the bucket, and fanning out wire and cutting slack in and out and doing all kinds of pretty tricky live line work. And I just went, you know what? Sirens going and rubber guys burning rubber, and you're kind of freaked because you're doing hot work and it's pretty tricky stuff, and you got pedestrians all around. You're trying to keep everybody out of the work zone, and I thought, you know what, this place sucks, And where you do the same work up here, and you're staring out at a farmer's field with a lake in the background, and oh, look at there's a moose over there, and there's some baby fawns and stuff, and I don't know. Just something in me likes the more mellow, relaxed country life, and I kind of fit in here. And then I enjoyed the winters, like the 4 seasons. I always, as a kid on the island, we never got much snow. Yeah. So when it snowed out, that was a big to do. Wow. So of course we got a really good winter here. So I enjoyed the snow and the cold back then. Don't so much now. Yeah. But I just enjoyed the big sky country, they always called it here. I turned my crank. I liked it all. So, and I've never gone back. So, although when I do go back to the island, I go straight to the ocean, and I smell the ocean, and I go, wow. I remember many a times we all had boats cruising around the Gulf Islands, and that's one thing that talks to me about back there is the ocean, which is kind of. Spent a lot of time on the water, and but other than that, I think I'm a Caribou guy.
You kind of grew up on the ocean too, right?
Yeah. I was born in Prince Rupert. Yeah. Lived 10 years or 11,
there's the ocean.
Years there.
Grew up with gumboots on.
Yeah. Sou'wester hat and gumboots. Yeah. And it rained a lot, but it was really nice when it was nice. Yeah. And so we spent a lot of time out in the water, and then after, growing up in Vancouver too for the remainder till I was about 25. Then we moved up here, but it's we got out in the water as much as we could, and so I think I ended up with salt water in my veins for sure. Yes. And then after we'd sold the company and everything, I ended up buying a big yacht and keeping it down in Vancouver for 10, 12 years. And we spent a lot of time out on the water with that, and Mom and I, and traveling around the coast. I still miss it a lot, but we've got a place out on the lake which is serving its getting me on the water thing. Yeah, fish boat and fishing. Yeah, carrying on. Yeah, it's nice. I still love the water. I don't know why. I guess growing up with it when I was young, it just sort of sticks with you. As soon as you smell the ocean, it's like, okay, now I'm home.
Exactly.
But landlocked here in the Caribou is a little different. But you know what? I've always enjoyed it too. the winters got to be a little bit too much working out, and the last job we did up in Fort St. John kind of did me in.
Yeah.
All winter, 25, 30 below, and the wind never stopped. And it was just like trying to string transmission across the highways and stuff. And, you're up off the ground. As soon as you get off the ground, man, you're frozen.
It's cold.
And then we built that substation there too at the same time, crawling around in all that concrete and rebar and steel transformers and stuff. Oh my God. The end of that winter down there did me in. So
Yeah.
I ended up spending more time in the office after that.
I try to tell people about the west coast of Canada too. Like the west coast of British Columbia, like is unique to the rest of the world, just with how it looks, marine life. You really don't see inlets and stuff anywhere else, any other coastline in the world like you do in the west coast of Canada. And I guess a bit down into the United States too, but it's really unique in that way.
Yeah, the inlets are special. I mean, a lot of the rivers ran off the plateau and through and from the coast mountains directly into the ocean, right? And so you can go up major inlets where you're looking straight up the mountains, all the way up the inlet. They're pretty amazing, Butte. I mean, Butte runs the Narco from Tatlioka Valley there, and it runs down into and it's just emerald green water.
Yeah,
it's just
gorgeous,
amazing, and every one of them, Knight and Indian Arm, all of them are just amazing inlets to go up and explore with the
people don't realize like it's straight mountain cliffs down and it's like magical, like waterfalls, spindly little waterfalls all the way down, and then you got like
archipelago of islands everywhere, and the marine life is incredible.
And same with like the Gulf Islands. Like we travel around there. You're like you're not very far from anything, but you're in the middle of nowhere, so to speak. Like I remember we'd go crabbing and cod fishing and go to shore, grab a box of beer, come back and then go around, check all the traps, do a little salmon fishing, and you're in the middle of nowhere. Like seems like, yet you go around the corner, here's a huge Friday Harbor pub. It's just like wow, just gorgeous.
Yeah. And the marine life's really unique and different because it's a little different than like the tropical areas of the world that are more sand and palm trees and jungle type. This is big cedars and, just a little cooler water. And marine life's a little different. You're talking orcas, not humpback whales or something. Humpbacks too, but I don't know, it's pretty cool. Special place to like grow up and spend some time in. I like to say that on here too, because like the lots of people that listen from the US, like listen from, like the East Coast or something, and they just have no idea what it's actually like on this side. And
I remember one time fishing with my dad and my one brother, and we were out on off Souk, like it was Otter Point and all out that way. And we're fishing away, and the humpbacks were coming by us and stuff like that, and you could see orcas and stuff, and we're just like, wow, this is just, and you could see Olympic Peninsula's right there, just gorgeous. And we're going, wow, this wilderness is so cool. And my brother goes, what the heck is that? We look over, and here was a U.S. Navy submarine kit had come up and brought its tower up, and like a massive submarine. And we're going, what the heck is that? And it was headed to Bangor, Washington, where the main port is there. And like we thought, holy man, you'll see anything here, like orcas and like
so
it's
cool.
just like, and here's a nuclear sub right here.
That's what I mean. It's pretty unique, and you still see that because it's like a channel they go practicing all the time and do different exercises and stuff. So you see warships out there all the time.
Oh yeah, it was just. I remember we just sat there going, holy smokes, what's going on here, man? Yeah.
You owned a business most of your career. You own businesses, work for utility, work for contractor. Let's talk a little bit about the differences between all of those, because I get those questions quite a bit. Like, should I go utility? Should I go contractor? Should I start a business? Should I do this, that, and the other thing?
Well,
I say do it all.
Well, yeah, and I did it. I've done it all, and I liked it all. I like BC Hydro. A lot of guys with the contractors don't like BC Hydro, and I lucked out. Some of the crews I worked on were awesome. They was great, well looked after, good tradespeople. And the private sector's good, but you don't have the option now with the private sector as much. You have to go work for, say, an Alltech or Rockstead or whomever, right? So the private thing's kind of out of the question nowadays. You're not going to probably not make a living out of it.
It's going to be difficult to start a business in the environment, both economically and, to have all the equipment and the safety programs and all of the management tools you need.
To do a
and then
small
everything.
private work.
It's just totally different now than it was when we were building our businesses and stuff. Yeah.
And with the utility, like I say, I enjoyed it and had great guys, great training. What I like about utility is later in your career, there's more avenues for you to take. If you want to get into, say, safety or a manager or design or just TTs or, any of that stuff. Yeah. There's avenues. And another thing you got to keep in mind, as a contractor, you're working hard, your body might break down when you don't want it to. And you might not, oh, I got a bad back or I got wrist issues or whatever. I've been lucky, touch wood. I've been pretty good other than a bit of arthritis, just pushing bolts through and working in cold hands in the winters and stuff. But yeah, a lot of guys, at least with a utility, you could have an avenue to follow something else and a lot of guys think, oh man, I just want to be a lineman. I just want to be a lineman. I don't want to be a boss. Well, you got to look at down the road.
Yeah.
So I look at it that way. And like I say, I enjoyed working with BC Hydro. I didn't have a problem with BC Hydro. The money's not as good, but the money's more steady. Yeah. It's more,
I always tell people it's kind of a phase of life thing too,
it is.
Right? Like take it, what phase of life you're in. Don't be afraid to try something to change up if you need, it's a dial. That's what's so cool about the line trade is it's a dial you can turn depending on what your needs are. And lots of other like businesses or industries, you don't really have that option to like ramp it up or ramp it down or, change it up, go change locations. Yeah. Like you can't necessarily do that
it's difficult as a contractor because you don't really, you may not have work in the area that you're in. So
you're traveling.
You're traveling all the time, right? So that's the one thing. But with the utility, they've got a home base. They got to maintain it. They're like firemen, right? They're the guys for this district. And so, as a younger guy with a family that wants to be home more, that's an option for them, and I think that's that they take a little and give a little, and they're able to stay home more and not have to travel so much away from the family because you talk about that on the cast all the time about if you are traveling, it's hard on family life sometimes. It can be
big time. Yeah. I remember lots of times heading back to the site or back to the project on a Sunday. And I'm thinking, man, I could be at home having roast beef dinner and watching TV with the family, and and yet I'm heading north again. And
that was in that sense too. You could get a phone call during that roast beef dinner.
Get a
trouble call, and you'd be out all night.
Always on a Christmas Eve or something, you'd be getting that.
Oh yeah, I remember doing those. Yeah. Or the ones I used to hate when you get a call at 2 a.m. and you look out and down on the island, when I lived down the island there, in pouring rain, pouring rain.
It's never in nice weather.
You get into your truck and you go and you meet the boys at the yard and figure out what you're after, and then head down to the site and everybody be sitting in the truck and it's pouring rain out and you got a broken pole and it's just like, okay, who's getting out first? It's just like, because once you go out there, you ain't coming back in the truck until you're done because you'll be soaked. And it doesn't matter if you wear rain gear or not. Yeah, they're sweated in the rain gear because the rain gear was not that good. It's still not that good nowadays. They say it is, but you're wet and there's no getting around it.
Yeah. So what's some places that you guys have enjoyed working? You've both kind of been all over the place. Paul, you've been in the
what I
US
enjoyed as a kid? I was probably like 24, 25, working in Qualicum, BC. And we did a huge reconductor up there and a huge job. And
what made it nice?
It's so beautiful. What a beautiful spot. You're looking over at the Coast Range and the tide would go out and you'd see the beaches. And back then real estate was reasonably cheap around there. And, it was not just absolutely stunning, Rath Trevor down south of Parksville, that area. Yeah. Just gorgeous. And then I spent probably a month and a half up in Long Beach, Tofino. Yeah. We did a reconductor there. And just the views and the beautiful ocean breeze blowing on you all day. It's just like, wow,
Yeah.
those are pretty nice. And just recently, like when we were in California, we did some work out of San Diego. There were stunning views there, just absolutely stunning views, gorgeous.
San Diego's a nice place.
Oh man, that was
That's
pretty
the
neat.
other thing about the trade. That's why I asked the question too. Is like that's the other thing about the trade is like provides that opportunity to explore a little bit if that's what you want.
Yes.
If you want to travel and you want to get paid to travel,
Yes.
it's a good career to have because you can do that. You can
There isn't
hand up
any
for different
corner of
things.
this
And-
province
well,
we haven't
and-
worked in. I mean, it's
We've done it all pretty
Terrace
much.
to Fort St. John to the
Yeah.
island, upper island, Fort McNeil, and down in the Kootenays, and we've been everywhere.
And you know
Like,
the
so
one
you
I used
just-
to always say is on trouble, especially on trouble. You drive to all these places. You got a trouble call, so you're patrolling everything. You have no reason to ever go there, and you probably would never go there. But once you do go there for your work to patrol, you go, "Wow, is this place cool? Like I never knew this was here."
Yeah.
And so even going into people's estates and you see stuff, and like you. Of course, you
told
go in and
people all
introduce
that.
yourself, say, "Hey, we're just patrolling for the," because the guy come out with a shotgun or something. What are you doing in my driveway at 2 a.m, shining your lights in my front room window? Well, we're doing our thing, but yeah, like you went to places you'd never think of going. You had no reason to go.
Just throw those blinky orange lights
Yeah,
on and
yeah.
hey, we're here to fix your power. Okay, come on in.
Like Smithers, I remember spending quite a bit of time in Smithers and some of the scenery you saw there with that ski hill in town and the river and everything. It's just like,
Bulkley Valley is
man.
awesome.
Yeah. And Terrace is another spot I saw when we did that White Bottom Road there, that IPP line up in there. It was just like, holy man. It's just like absolutely stuff you see in picture books, Gorgeous stuff.
The Nass Valley too. We probably got a few photos of that.
Yep.
Nass
It's
Valley.
another one,
area
yeah.
there.
Nass
It's
Valley.
pretty crazy. The whole country, the whole province of British Columbia is probably, I don't know. I've been all around the world too, but it's
Pretty unique.
pretty unique. It's pretty
People don't
awesome.
understand how big it is either. I continually tell them all the time, like you can fit 2 Texases in British Columbia. Like you can start at the bottom and keep driving for 2 days before you hit Alaska.
Yeah. I remember
our work, like you'd go to do a day's work and you drive Tattle Lake and drive back again.
Yeah.
It's a 16-hour day.
Yeah, it's-
whatever, but you're changing a pole or whatever you're doing.
And that's why I always used to go back to in my original when I read about the Caribou Big Sky Country. Oh yeah, she's a big sky here. Like, there's a lot of room, you know. And but I do remember a quote. I had a bed and breakfast at my house in Victoria, and had a nice big swimming pool in the backyard. I had a couple come from California, came and stayed with us. And I'd forgotten that they were actually coming. We had a party going, and they knocked on the door, came in, and they were, oh, cool, we like this place. Anyways, they joined in the party. And so we spent the evening partying together and stuff like that. And then we took them out for breakfast in the morning and showed them around Victoria. And they came back to the house, and they said, you know what, you guys, you shouldn't tell anybody about this place. It is so beautiful. Like, keep it quiet.
Yeah.
And I always remember that guy saying, and now you look at all the population that we have now, it's just like, wow. I just drove through my old subdivision there about a month ago, and it's just like, oh my goodness.
Different, right?
We had big lots, so they have coach houses. Every house has a coach house in the backyard.
Yeah.
And I went, it's just a little bit too much, But it is what it is, I guess.
Couple things like advice wise, I'm curious. For the guys that want to start a business, they want to because I know quite a few people, and they still ask more so in the U.S. versus Canada. So put that hat on, more in the U.S. Hey, I kind of want to start my own thing. A lot of guys are starting storm crews, especially
Big time.
on their own, but then those morph into the ability to get some trucks and some manpower and, start a business. I got another guy I've had on the show a couple times as well, Dennis Kelly from the East Coast. He started 2 fitness gyms, and he's a lineman, then started 2 fitness gyms while he was doing line work. He'd do those on the side, and then decided to get a partner and start his own power line company. He's doing extremely well for himself now. K&R Utilities, shout out to them. New York, I think. But guys want to do this, and you can still make a good go of it, but like advice for getting into business on your own, what to look out for.
Go to law school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or hire a really good lawyer.
Honestly,
your first hire.
Honestly,
You can't afford those guys. They're too expensive. No, I think that, you're always probably good at the trade that you're in, and before you're going to start a business, because you've got to be excellent at what you're doing in order to be hired and not have any mistakes that cost you money, right? So I don't ever remember having a problem with that with the two companies that we both had. But I did see that quite often with guys that get in over their head right away, and there was lots of them that went down because they just didn't understand the bidding process or the dollars and cents of it, and the overhead costs that you run into, and it's hard to be business oriented and be a good tradesperson, and that's what you end up having to be. And usually you need a partner, or
yes.
Like I had my wife, and she did all the books, and without her, this company would have never even got off the ground, because you have to have the trust in that whole office staff thing. When after we sold to Quanta and then went to work with Alltech, I mean, they had the basic infrastructure with the office staff and all the safety people and the equipment guys, and then it just grew from there. I mean, Quanta had the unlimited sort of backing of managing the business and giving you the support and the bonding, and that's the problem, is that the insurance and the bonding today, and
that's the killer,
and all of that kind of stuff. It's very important, and so guys getting in, it's quite complex. It just sounds easy to have a line truck and a bucket truck and a couple good guys and go to work, but it just doesn't work that way anymore. The big corporation companies that you need to work for, and the mines, the mills, the hydros, the utility, all these, they need all of the bonding backing, safety programs, and the insurance
and the varieties of equipment you need to pull off some of these tasks, right?
Yeah.
Facts. Yeah.
Cranes,
it's a little
75-foot
tougher
buckets
today than it was. I mean, we all built it from nothing before. I remember buying my first line truck from Ori Jenkins on Vancouver Island, for crying out loud. In the mid '80s there when we first got one, and you just start from nothing and build it, and but now I don't know. If
it's the big boys club now.
Yeah.
And we don't even have, like down in the States, how you can start. We could say as a team here, okay, we're going to start our own storm chasing crews. I know quite a few guys that do down the States, and but here you can't do it. You're too blocked. And will the private sector give you enough? Like mines and mills.
You got to be really scrappy. You almost got to be from the city where you can do pole holds.
Yeah.
Do you want to do
variety,
that kind of work?
But that's little, and you're not gonna draw the good quality guys you need. The big good quality guys are gonna go where the money is, the big name company. Like your Rocksteads and your Alltechs, where you can go to California, or you can go on project with Rockstead to California, or all over the world. But with the little guy, you're not gonna do it. So you're limited to the kind of quality guys you're gonna draw in. So the young guys, do you think they want to do pole holds? No. Do you think they want to go hang a private switch and build a 2-span tap? I don't think so. They want to go 500 glass change, bare hand work, all that stuff. So
helicopter work, big city stuff.
Yeah, they want to be long
chase
line.
big dollars, big projects.
Yes.
Well, that's what happened. That's the reason why. One of the main reasons why I ended up selling out. It was hard to keep it going as a small company. Yeah. You just had to grow. You got to a certain size. You're doing, whatever, 15 million a year at the time or whatever, and you're doing the work, but you needed to grow now to 50, and that growth and all what it took would have been huge at the time. In order, you'd have to be working everywhere, and so to give the guys that we had, good guys, all the young guys that we had, the opportunity to do what you just said about chasing the work and building a career and a life with the, you know, it was better that they work for a Quanta company, and that's how Quanta built their company. I mean, they built it on buying and well, first of all, a group of a few good contractors got together and formed that group so that they could do what you're talking about, and then they just acquired good family-owned companies with good background, good people, and just kept growing and now look at
and
the corporation's awesome.
They're
like,
huge,
huge.
But, you know, like Ryan, going back to, like, you know, when you worked for your dad with Interior, and we had Bridge Creek, and you had Claude and Rush and these guys. But then we all became Alltech when you sold out. Look at when we went to, number one, Connecticut. You know, look at that. That was just like, wow, insane. Like, we were just in dreamland. And then we went back again a month after we'd finished everything. And then the Washington State jobs. And then you have your fire jobs down. And like the options and the money and everything was so cool and so good.
That's why I stayed. You know, like, I had the opportunity to go the business side if I wanted to, but the line side excited me so much more. I had this big bucket list of things I wanted to check off within the trade first as a lineman. And yeah, like you said, as soon as we were acquired by Quanta, like, the door was kicked wide open. I went and did bare hand work. I traveled. I did storm work all over the place. Like, you just had so much more opportunity to do that list of bucket list things. I don't regret any of that. I also love, like, have a bit of that entrepreneur side in me as well. I would love to, but like you guys have said, it's kind of hard in BC anyway to
I think Canada in general, it's just
yeah.
structured so much different. Like you see the storm chasing thing down the States is huge. I'm on LinkedIn there, and you see all the stuff on there. Hey guys, we're looking for crew. Eric Estrada, you see his name on there? I'm friends with him, so I've been watching him, and I'd love to hook up with those guys because it's incredible. Like, hey guys, if you can be here on Sunday night, we're heading out. Let me know who can make it, and just boom, and the money those guys are making down there, and the work they're doing, it's incredible. You know, and it's just like, wow, but we just don't have that option here. It doesn't seem like, and we're not, if you notice, we're not getting the States calls as much as we used to. I don't know what's going on with that, but it seemed like there was more of it.
I think it's volume as well. Like, for like more of those type of storm chasing crews. So more people do that down there, whereas they didn't as much in the past either. You know, they've streamlined a lot of that in a lot of places. Like, I've heard guys talk about storms on the East Coast are very dialed in. Like East Coast, very dialed in. Good. They use good software. They use good programs. They're very organized, detailed, and it's very dialed. So like stuff like that helps. And they've done that over the last 10 years. It hasn't, just happen overnight.
No. And after a while, you get pretty good at stuff like that. I remember talking to Dave Jorgensen too. He was on that. He had friends down there that he would go down. He would text me all the time. Oh yeah, Paul, I'm heading down, and he'd go down there for 3 weeks and come back. I'm good for the year. It's just like, really? It's just wow.
Well, Quanta had put together, like a storm organization, and then they would hit all the operating units and how many guys can you send, how much equipment, and they'll put together thousands of guys and equipment
it's amazing,
just like that, right? And then we're waiting until it quits blowing and we're there. And so it's pretty amazing. I mean, that's the power of what they do and bring to the table. So for small guys to just phone up the local, hey, we'll bring our 2 or 3 crews down. They could, not so much anymore.
The thing is I still love that spirit, though.
Oh, I know.
Like,
it's awesome.
As big as an organization as Quanta is, started, with one person with that sort of spirit. So like, I still like to, and that's America as well. Like, if you want to go do that, go do that. Well, you want to start a small company, go start a small company. It's your right to do that.
Years ago, when we were working, Robin, with yourselves and us, when we ganged up on storms, remember that one night we all worked out at the Lake of the Trees for that line that we built for John Young there. And we were working with the hydro crews, and we were at the tail end of the storm, but we wanted to get it done, and we all leapfrogged down and it was just awesome. What we got done was awesome. It was just like, wow.
Yeah.
And
a lot of those storms were like that, where we could gang up and everybody.
It was, and everybody worked so good together. It just was, okay, let's get at her, boys. Yeah. And it was always a race. It was always a race.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything without trying to go faster. Yeah.
Spirit.
Oh yeah. I remember spinning the old double skirt glass when we found the bad ones there. Yeah. Of course, you'd have an outage and it'd be, okay, on your marks, get set, ready. Oh yeah. The outriggers couldn't come up quick enough.
Yeah. You got to have that.
Oh yeah.
It's healthy competition.
And then you could hear somebody, they'd have a little mistake, and then everybody be going around their truck and, okay, we're heading down the backstretch here, So I used to love that stuff. That was cool.
Yeah. Paul, am I right? Did you get your 50-year pin?
I got a 45.
45.
I should be. I'm right at 50 years here now. Yeah.
It's wild.
And still working.
Yeah.
Just part-time.
Yeah.
And the boys look after me pretty good. They don't make me do too much I don't have to do, but I always jump up in the bucket and go. I love it.
But this is what people don't, again, when you start in your career and a career like this and you're starting in it, I don't think people realize how long it actually is, or can be, you talk 45 years. Mm-hmm. When you're just starting in this, you're 3-4 years into it, you're like, if you just take a second to think about how long you still could have left in this, 45 years. I preach a few things like patience. And then I ask this question a lot, which is it's like a crew dynamics question, but more just how to work with people. And because you think 45 years, your reputation is very important. Things like reputation, work ethic. What are some other things like that are important to think about even in the beginning? Because, it lasts 45, 50 years or could. Plus, how do you deal with people along the way and different people and managing relationships and things like that?
You nailed it.
Because you've been someone that's managed relationships very well.
Yeah.
Always keeping up with people, giving people calls, texts. You're constantly talking to people all the time.
But you nailed it on the head. It's just I always like to have a good work ethic, work safe. Respect is a huge thing. With your manager, your crew lead, your crew members, and you always got to remember, it doesn't matter who's the crew lead. You're working as a crew. It is a crew. Ultimately, the crew lead is responsible for actions, but it's coming up with ideas, plans, techniques of any sort. It's always a crew.
Yeah,
I've ran crews for years. Always thought of, you got all kinds of things. Oh, we got to get this. I got to get the backhoe organized for tomorrow, and I got to get live lines for this, and blah blah. But ultimately you'll miss something. You'll have a low man on the team say, "Hey guys, why don't we do this?" And you go, "Holy smokes, yeah, right on. That's what we're doing." That So you always gotta. I always like to include my crew. I always like to respect my crew. The needs of each guy is a little different. And you learn how to treat people, how you can get away with stuff, how you can't get away with stuff. And you have sensitive, and then you have grumpy guys. And I always was pretty good. It was a natural thing. I didn't do anything, but I could read guys and weave that fine line to have a crew work as a team with respect. And I found harmony amongst the crew. And when you have the respect and harmony amongst all the team, man, does the production ever come? Yeah. And does everybody look after everybody? And that to me is always in. And just because I was the foreman or sub-foreman or GF, that didn't mean I was the big cheese. I'm ultimately responsible if something goes sideways. Yeah, I agree. But always looked at everybody's input and respect of everybody. And I always did well that way. And I think that's what's helped me out through my years. Because I'm not, I'm just a human being. I'm not no super duper lineman guy or nothing, but always using the whole team together as a gel. And that's why I think I've got along with guys so well all my life and had respect from guys and treated guys decent. And like you say, a good thing is as a crew lead, is to read people and read sensitivities, there's certain guys you can chirp all day long, and it's chirpathon. And there's other guys that are sensitive to the chirp thing, and other guys like to be cuddled, and other guys there's a fine line in there how you read stuff and use it to the crew's advantage, not my advantage, because I'm just one of the guys. So that's the way I always tried to make things work.
Yeah.
I think it's reflective in the Canadian nature and Canadian safety record in a long way.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, you got smaller companies, good crews that work together.
Yeah.
Guys all get along. They're always looking out for each other's
Yeah.
back.
Well, that's
And even like so many times, like when running the business and that, you're looking for guys that come from the East Coast over. Jerry Rector was one, John Morris,
Yep,
and all these kind of guys, Bobby Goss, and you get these good guys, and they're all of the same nature, right? And they all work together and watching out and doing good work and and having fun and having a few pops.
And those guys, like you're talking about Bobby Goss and Jerry. I used to those guys are incredible, and we got along. And Bobby Goss was a good guy to work for. Could have been a real stickler sometimes too. But once Bobby, you proved yourself to Bobby, and you did your job. Like do your job and do it good. He was great, and same with Jerry. Like Jerry Rector, hell of a lineman, like super, but he had it his way. And if you knew how to manipulate him in such a way that he still loved you, then things were great. And that was the fine line of reading the book. I used to read the book.
Yeah.
And like, here's an example down in the States. We had the lines go across private property. It's not a right of way down the road, across property. We had multiple irate companies. Like we were coming in with these big 100-foot steel poles right in the guy's backyard. It's just like, what, So we had irate customers, beautiful manicured yards. So they had this one customer nobody could deal with. So they kind of read my disposition, I guess.
Sure.
Brent Young, rather, and said, hey, we'll put Paul's crew over there. So I went over and I said, guys, go have a coffee. I'll go chat and see what I can figure out here. I started chatting to the owner, the lady of the house. I chatted her up, and she was great. Come on in. So we came in, told her what we're going to do, exactly catered to her requests, but we needed to cater to her requests because we had to be on her property. Anyways, when I left there, she was great. Phoned in, said, there's the guy we need to deal with, because I guess they had a kind of pretty rough crew come in prior to us and pretty much told her what they thought and blah, blah. Anyways, we buttered her up. I was getting texts at night from her and her husband because they had a very beautiful place. When are you coming? We'd like to know. And then next thing you know, Paul, we got another irate customer. We're sending your crew over there. So I was the guy that dealt with all the irate customers. The thing I had a problem with, though, is when you come onto these properties and the dude's packing a sidearm.
Yeah.
He's got a 9mm. And as Canadians, I have a gun license and stuff and a handgun license, but we're not used to seeing that. Yeah. And it was very upsetting to me. I was nervous. Like, talk to the guy. He was cool, but don't piss him off because you don't know what's going to happen. And I just didn't like that part of it. I just went, holy smokes, like how far does one push this? If we have a hydraulic hose go here and there's oil going everywhere, is this guy going to just unload his clip on us or what? So there was stuff like that. And I'm just going back to just treat people with some respect. We got to do the job. Yeah, if I have to go beyond the call of duty to make this work, so be it. Yeah. But in the long run, it'll pay off. You know what I mean? So, So anyways, hey, Paul, we got another great customer down the road. And I just chatted them up, got along with them. And I had no issues.
That's the thing too, though. It's like that sort of stuff can people are always like, I got no work, or I'm out of work, or nobody ever calls me. Like, well, what are you doing to like set yourself apart? Yeah. Now you just set yourself apart as the guy to do these. Maybe it's not the greatest job in the world, but hey, you're the one working. You're the one they're still calling every day to go do. They're keeping you here longer on the project than every other crew because we got a few more things to do. And it goes along to that.
Oh, I know. I had some guys from New York State on our crew, and these guys were wow, like we're not used to seeing this kind of stuff. These are linemen, good linemen, but just different dudes, eh? Like really different. And anyways, they came on my crew and I treated them really well. They loved me. They loved me. And but the one day I said, okay, guys, and we had our tailboard in the morning. And okay, guys, you're coming on. A lot of our guys didn't like them, but I dealt with them and I just treated them great. And they loved me. And they called me at night, hey, thanks, man, for having us on your crew and everything. But our crew was getting real pissed with me having these guys on the crew. Anyways, the one morning they said, yeah, we got our tailboard. We had our tailboard. And they said, okay, and we've got a list of names for drug and alcohol testing right after this. And you could just see all the guys looking around. And then they went down the list. I remember Ori and Trevor Perry and I just laughed. And Bob and Steve and Joe, well, they're the three guys from New York State on our crew. You got to do, and they just in their cars gone. It was just like but you know what it was. I got along with them great, but they were the kind of guys like it had to be their way. Like this is the way we do it, and I said no, that's not the way we work here. We're gonna look at this as a crew, and we're gonna go with.
See, that's the other thing too, is like be strong in that for leaders. So many leaders get pushed over, and pushed over by those people who seem to have more experience or just older or whatever. They're like, no, we're going to do it this way. It's like, no, you lead your crews. Like they're a part of your crew. They're not the leaders. Yeah. You are. If you want to do things a little different, make it known.
Yeah. Yeah. And we found too, because we got ourselves, remember I showed you that video where we're booting out those arms, so those big fiber arms and stuff like that. And we played around and we played around and played around. And this was all new to us, but we all had really good line background. So we kind of figured it out and fine-tuned it. And we had it to a procedure. The way we did it was pretty cool and it worked really good and it was efficient. So we did that. And then you'd have guys come in, oh, wow, let's do this. And no, this is the way we've been doing it. We've done that. That didn't work. That didn't work. We did it all. Yeah. And it's not saying that there wasn't some better ways, but that's the way with what we had. Our
proven.
This is bulletproof. This is the way it is. So it just went that way. And a lot of the American guys, they took their hats off. Like the Altec crews we had down there, we did good work. Like they could have gone anywhere. Yeah. We could have stayed quite a bit longer. Yeah. There was a couple of variables that kind of got in the way there, but and grew huge friendships and relationships with the guys down there.
Well, I don't know. I've been involved with the apprenticeship program here in BC for 30 years, and signed probably for the last 25 years signed everyone's certificate that's come through the contracting group. And knowing how they've been trained and the companies they've worked for and the type of work we've done here in BC. I mean, the linemen from BC, second to none, go anywhere in the world and can work and be their top guys. Like it's been proven many, many times. I mean, all the crews that I had with Altec and going to the States, and they would fit right in and be part of the leadership groups of many, many jobs for, North Houston Pole or any of the big companies they were working for. And even today, guys like Shannon and Chase, they're just
good bunch of guys,
top guys, and can run big jobs up to 500 and no problem, right? Like it's huge. And some of the live line work that we did here in BC prior to, and then, I mean, basically, Quanda's live line instruction group and leadership group, Waldnager and Fred and all those guys, and they all come out of BC. It's pretty amazing.
Fred Hogman.
Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing guys and pretty amazing, crews that we've been able to put together to travel all over the world, really, doing that kind of work. I remember when I first started with Altec, and they had the crews going to South Africa to do that big job there, and
for World Cup.
Pretty good guys.
45, 50 years in it. You've seen a lot in the way of innovation. A lot of way in the way of safety changes, innovation changes. What have you seen that you like, and what have you seen that you don't like and kind of discard? You still go with the old way.
What I like, the tailboard, when the tailboard theory came out, before we you worked with the same crew day in, day out. You knew what the next guy was doing. You didn't have to worry about it. But now with the tailboard, filling out your tailboards and all that stuff, the equipment has come hugely advanced with the bucket trucks. Although you look at a brand new bucket truck and it's the same bucket truck that was brand new 10 years ago. They haven't done too many. There's lots of tweaks they could be doing to the trucks, the Alltech style boom, the E series booms, over center booms. And then, your hot sticks, we were using Bluetooth phasing sticks. I went, wow, this is cool. And we were doing it on the ground with telepoles. So I thought, wow, now this is the kind of advancements that you should see. But, other than that, honestly, what has changed? Mm-hmm. You put the stick in the ground, you put the insulators on it, and you put the wire on it. Like things, the protection devices have changed. Yeah, that's changed. But the whole power line theory, especially with BC Hydro, I find we're using wooden cross arms still. They don't use the fiber arms other than the dead end. Yeah. But like everything should be fiber in my mind. The insulators should be all quick ties. The loom ties, But there's some hardware that could be changed. The hot sticks, Robin, you could grab a Chance hot stick, and it hasn't changed. Well, I remember when I started, they were wood, and then we advanced into the fiberglass, the Chance. But that Chance shotgun has not changed anything between 1979 and now.
That's like all of the sticks and the stick attachments.
Yeah,
like
holding
the
tools.
The molds, the original molds they made 60 years ago are the same molds they're using. It's amazing.
The thing that we didn't have back in those was DVRs. You could test the voltage, stuff like that. And we had the Modi walks, but they were not as accurate. Voltmeters and stuff like that. But really, your fall protection, your PPE has changed a little bit. But not a whole bunch. So we're just wearing FR now. We always wore high vis, but really, not a whole bunch.
He came out with the hydraulic jibs, and all the hydraulic tools. Now they got into battery tools and stuff. That's helping quite a bit. And then having those buckets being able to rotate, and that's pretty. Yeah. That was a big advancement from those old buckets we used to use.
The one I've been looking at, I've been following, is the Palfinger buckets are coming out now.
Oh yeah,
and they're a lot thinner at the head, and they're coming along. I would really like to fly one, because I really think that Alltech booms are great. Their buckets are bar none the best. Yeah. But they need to be, it was like DeWalt. Remember you had DeWalt, and then Milwaukee came on the scene and just kicked DeWalt's butt. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they were innovative. They came out with all these new tools and stuff. Well, I think Alltech needs to get their butt kicked a little bit with, say, Palfinger come out. And if you look at the controls in the buckets, there should be things there that are better. Yeah. Where your belts clip in. Terrible. The worst thing ever.
Agree.
And bucket, the bucket itself could be reconfigured. Lots of things could be changed, like tricked out more.
I just had Landon Dees on the show. He Linemen started a company called Lineman Bucket Products or something. Lineman Bucket Products. Just making like tricked out little tools for your tools and
there's some pretty trick stuff nowadays.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. It's so cool. And why not? You got all these things now. You got drills and tools for everything now. Yeah. You never had all that. You just had one bell wrench, a goat wrench, and a crescent wrench.
Yeah.
And the set of clines and the knife.
But Milwaukee, I take my hat off to what they've done to help us in the trade. Like their stuff is great. Yeah. Great. I hear DeWalt's taking a look at things. They lost a huge amount of market share.
They won't compete. I know the guys from Milwaukee, had them on the show a couple of times. They're kicking everybody's ass.
They are. There's no doubt.
Because what they did was they listened to the people. They went to linemen and they're like, how can we make this better? And the lineman's like, I wear rubber gloves all day. I need a bigger handle. So they go back and they're like, hey, these guys need a bigger handle for their glove. Okay, they put a bigger handle on it. It's like they did things like that that were like for the actual end user. Whereas,
and that's where I said the same thing with a bucket company, just to make, you could one up them. Like they haven't changed anything.
Actually using it. Yeah.
and the trucks are all cool. We're dealing with all these internationals. They're just terrible. And their life is expired. But they're still, because it's hard to get equipment nowadays, because with the pandemic and everything, I think the production just went so far behind they couldn't catch up again. But I've seen bucket trucks around, like some of the buckets down I saw in the States. I just went, oh my goodness gracious, is that beautiful? Like Kenworths and stuff like that. Why do they have to be internationals or Peterbilts? I'm not a big fan of the Peterbilt chassis, but a Kenworth or
I think they had to build stuff, more economically to compete with the internationals and stuff like that. And so, and then emission controls really kicked the snot out of a lot of these engines. They could never figure that part out. That's a joke.
Like these trucks, they couldn't do a regen. You couldn't work them while you're regen. And I'm going, what a good time to regen. It's while you're working, like regen.
Yeah.
It wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
But you have to program the computer. It can be done, but none of them came that way. Like that should have been hands down done. Yeah. Okay, we're going through a regen, guys. Well, carry on. But when you went through a regen with the Altex trucks, you had to sit on the side of the highway for 45 minutes to an hour. La 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 la. It's like, really?
It's mental.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. But yeah, tools stuff. Some things have changed. Like Rob mentioned, the Milwaukee tools have taken us ahead. The equipment is better than what it used to be. And when we got into those E-Series boom, remember the little single axle we had? And then now with the 60 footers and stuff like that, they're fast.
Amazing.
They're amazing. Jibs, trees. Some of the new trees that I've seen hydro crews using that are, you can bisect a corner or anything, like it's just like, cool. Like trees are pretty cool. But other than that, it's,
What have you seen in the way of safety that you like or don't like?
Well, safety grounding is a huge thing, whereas in the past it was taken very lightly. Mm-hmm. Now I find it's more the grounds are tested yearly, they're inspected, they're put up as per standards for hydro or pole banding and stuff like that. So that's all good. Climbing. Everybody's always got their belt on. The odd time somebody will get sidetracked. Hey, bud, clip it. You forgot to clip in. That kind of stuff. Looking after your buddy kind of stuff. Jacks are inspected and tagged, tested. Tools are, it's safety's come quite a ways.
Do you find people are actually watching out for each other, doing the things like that?
Yeah, I find that pretty good that way. The thing I find nowadays, the biggest detriment to us is cell phones. And what I mean by that is everybody's watching their cell phone. Guys are taking phone calls when they're up hot sticking. I pisses me off to the utmost. Yeah. Leave your phone in the cab or take it with you depending what you're doing or where you're at. Yeah. But leave it alone. You don't need to answer that call right now. There's nothing says that you can't. Let's land the face. Let's tie it in. Let's get all three tied in. Let's go to the ground. I'll clean up. You go take your phone call. Not right now. You don't have to take the phone call now. Or holding up a crew, like a guy sitting on the digger, and
$1,000 an hour. One guy's
he's on the phone talking about something. It's related to work. There's no doubt it's related to work. But does it need to be responded to at that point? Yeah. That's my key. And then I've been at sites. I have seen sites where I've just come up when I was with Altec and just kind of pull up. No, they're not knowing I'm there, and just looking. Everybody's staring at a phone. So it's like, really? Does everybody need to be on a phone right now? And then like Robin and I were talking earlier too. Like the radios. We used to use the radios. We never had phones. You had the radios.
Yeah, that's right.
I can see it. The cell phones are better. Yeah, by all means. But they don't even know how to use the radios anymore. It's just like, and rurally here, you need to know the radios because you might need that radio. You could be.
Well, you go 5 minutes out of town, you don't get.
You don't get a cell.
Well, I was just talking to Jamie yesterday too, and it's kind of a bittersweet or kind of thing with Starlink. He pointed out Starlink on the house, and he's like, "Oh, that Starlink, it's been amazing, but then it's also been like, I kind of miss the old ways." He's like, we get out on a right of way, in BC, like you said, 5 minutes outside of a city center, and you're lost to cell service and connectivity, and you don't get it. like all day, every day. So you throw Starlink in the air, and the whole crew's got, on a rain day, you're sitting on it right away, and you got Netflix and chill.
Well,
and he's like, I kind of miss the old ways. He's like, you guys have to talk to each other. And
it's good for communication if you had an emergency,
Exactly.
by all means. And that's the way you got to look at it. But yeah, the other stuff all comes into it. And the phones are great, I got no problem with hey, I got to make a call to the bank, or I got to phone somebody, I got to make a call to insurance company or something. Sure. Yeah, you bet. But you don't need to look at Facebook all day long, or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, it's just like, really? Okay.
No.
I'm old school. So it doesn't, you know what I mean? And I do look at Facebook, and I do TikTok and Instagram, but don't need to be doing it all the time, like, just like, come on now. But I remember that one crew I pulled out, and there were a lot of people and flaggers. Everybody was all staring at a phone. It's just like, really? I don't know how much time gets lost with this. But
it's brutal.
Yeah, I was just in Spain, and I noticed that like big crowds of people, 50% of the people are walking and looking at their phone, like head down walking, and I'm head up walking, and I'm like, if this guy runs into me, I see him coming. I'm not moving. He runs into me. He's on his ass. I could, whatever. I'm sorry. Pick your head up. Like, pay attention to what's going on. If you're looking at me, I'll sidestep. But if you're looking at your phone, I'm just going to keep walking and end up on the ground. I'm sorry.
And so many, like I've noticed in Vancouver too, everybody's like, the light will go green, or you can cross the traffic, and the people don't look. They're just staring at the phone. And I always take a look, it's sure nobody's running the red here or whatever, it's just like, no, the light went, or, I showed I can walk. Well, that doesn't mean it's safe to do so. Like, come on, dude,
kind of one more question before we wrap up, but it's a big one. Mental health's a huge issue. For everybody, especially these days. For some reason, it's just it's picked up. Whether it was always, I think it was kind of always there, but you weren't as free to talk about it, mental health conditions and things like that. I've lost a few people in the trade recently. Tom was one that it just seemed like it sneaks up on people, and all of a sudden, for some random reason that you never even thought was the last guy in the world that would have an issue with it, something takes his life or something like that. But what have you done, surviving a trade like this for as long as you have, to maintain mental health, or to get those breaks, or to go out and blow off steam, or do it in a healthy way? Like, what were some things that you've done in the past or still do to, like, go get that time, clear your head so you can come back to work?
Oh, you always gotta, I like my own time. I like my me alone time too.
What do you do?
Not with my wife, not with my kids, not nothing. I like my own time. You know what I do? You guys might laugh. I love gardening.
Yeah.
I go out and garden. I love it. It's my little thing. I used to do snowmobile riding and stuff like that, but just, you got to take your mind off. Like, there's more to life than freaking working, man. Yeah. And you need to clear your mind. You need to, hobbies, cars. Robin's got his cars and stuff. I love tinkering in the shop. Just not think. Just don't think. Yeah. Stop thinking. And stop answering the phone. Yeah. And stop taking texts.
Stop looking at the phone.
Stop looking at texts. Leave the phone in the house and stop doing texts. Oh, I was trying to get hold of you. Yeah, so what? I was busy.
That's a really great point, to be honest. Leave the phone for 5 minutes. Yeah. It's like you almost have a heart attack when you forget the thing, right? Like, if you jump in the car and you go downtown, you're like, shit, I forgot my phone. Oh my God, I got to get back home to get that phone.
There's two things in life, if you don't have, you're done. And number one's a phone and your wallet. You're done. And if you don't have, your debit card or whatever, you're done. And that's why two things I always keep, because they'll save your life, a phone or whatever, or you need help, or you have to communicate. Everything's phone nowadays. But just clear your mind. You got to get rid of that stuff. Go camping, But I like tinker. I go and shop and I tinker. I work on stuff and get my mind off things. And then, you know what? Honestly, sometimes I go tinker up at the shop on the trucks. And that clears my mind too. I'm not working about work. I'm tiddling the truck up. And I've always had a nice tiddly truck. I always enjoy having a tiddly truck. Proud of my truck. So I'll do that sometimes. It depends what kind of mood I'm in. What kind of mood I'm in. Like But quite often I'll go out and do gardening. I got beautiful gardens, flower beds, and lawn. I'm a real lawn dude.
Yeah.
Everybody laughs at me. But I love, but that's my way of just letting the steam go. I'm not big on traveling. Like, I don't mind going stuff. Like, a lot of people, we go traveling, and I hate airports.
Yeah.
I hate crowds. So I don't, getting out in the boat or something, like along that lines. I'd rather, and I am quite often like to just be on my own. Yeah. And a lot of my friends said, we always knew that about you. And I'm not a loner.
Yeah.
And because I'm a real talker when I go, but I'd like to just be on my own.
I call it a social, lots of people do now, but social battery.
Yeah.
I have a time, like, I've used up my social battery, and I just don't want to be around anybody anymore. I just need to be around me for a little bit and recharge my social battery so I can go out and talk and be energetic. But I just get done.
I'm kind of weird because I'll do I'll go on a Saturday up to the shop and just tinker on the truck, for an hour and a half, and then do just something that I wanted to do and I didn't have a chance to do, and or I'll go and fertilize all the flower baskets or go, and it's just, but I know big time, I need that. Yeah. Yeah. Big time.
What do you do?
Have a drink of wine. I don't know. Hang out in the boat. Yeah. That's a good one. That's a favorite.
Mm-hmm. You've kind of always had a boat. Or
the boat boats. Or go to the lake or whatever. Yeah. I know when, I was working for Alltech and managing all the day-to-day there with all my guys and then all the stuff you're doing, it was pretty stressful. There was a lot of work at the time. I never really let stress bother me too much. Stress is something that you create yourself. So I learned how to shut it off pretty much. Although, the phone would be buzzing all night long and every day, and you had to be available and doing stuff. But realistically, I could go and just sit on the back of the boat and watch the seals in the harbor. It never got to me that I ever remember. I mean, the odd time somebody might tick me off, but generally speaking, I was pretty calm about everything. Yeah. If I ever raised my voice above this level, somebody knew there was a problem. And
I've seen it a couple of times. I got out of the way.
But, really it's, it was good. I've always found a balance, and in there again, it comes back to, how we survived in business. Mom was the balance for me, truly, like through everything. We worked together, lived together, and did everything together. So it was it's always been good. I mean, she's seen the worst of me and the best. So it's good. And so being retired now, it's a whole different experience for me because 45 more years is just going hard. Well, it did, but now I went crazy and bought a hockey team. So I'm in the middle of building a junior hockey club now.
With my youngest boy. Up the boat here, right?
Tyrell. We're going to get fired up here in the season coming up here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I've always enjoyed sports and hockey, and you played and Ty played, and we traveled for that all the time, and I played back when I was a kid too. So it was a lot of it. It's just one of those sports that, it takes your mind off everything when you're there. So it's, that was always a release too. So
that was always been one of your favorite things.
And it was one of my favorites. Yeah. And the good part about working out of head office in Vancouver was getting to see the Canucks play for 10 years. Yeah. And so, it was good fun. And getting to meet those guys and spend a lot of time golfing and stuff. So those pastimes, those are hobbies. They're fun to do. They're all a release if you're
100%
if you're doing stuff,
And you got to take advantage of those things too. Like, don't let them go. No. Like, don't go, I'm too busy tonight to go do that. Take advantage. You got tickets to something, go. Yeah. Like,
some days,
so many people gave that up though. And like they gave it up because I'm working, or I'm out of town, or I got to get that job. Like, there's always another job. Like, you got take us to something, or you know, take your wife out, like go do those things. Yeah.
Just go. Yeah. Just do it.
And then after kind of getting retired, you get a little extra time sometimes. So I'll come out here in the shop, like you say, tinker on the cars, or take one for a burn, and burn the back tires off it, or, you know, run to town just for the sake of running to town. Yeah. Get an ice cream cone and come
forget
home.
Forget what you were going there to get. But
or I'll come out in the shop here and then, you know, picked up playing guitar again and stuff. So, I mean, you know, I'll spend 2 or 3 hours just till my fingers are sore. It's just doing that, and something to do. It takes your mind off everything else, and it's good fun. And,
yeah, and it's funny how at certain times certain things will relax me better than others. Like it's not I'd go to the same thing all the time. Different things, you know.
I always enjoyed fishing too. Like, so we got we after we sold the big boat, we bought a 24-foot Thunderjet, you know, like fishing, and it's all rigged for fishing, everything, downriggers. And I loved that, going out with Chase there a few times, but that was the ticket, right? So he kind of hooked me on that one. But you know, we'll get down to the ocean again with that and do some salmon fishing. But right now we got a beautiful spot at a big lake out in the east, out in the interior mountains there, and it's got the big Lakers and the rainbow and the Kootenai and everything.
Good times out there.
It's nice. Just put the putter on there and go around, cold beer.
Nothing like sitting
dragging a rod
on the ocean, and it's flat, calm, and you got a nice cold beer in your hand, and you got the rods, and you're checking your rods, and all of a sudden you get a hit. And, damn! I'll finish that beer later. That's pretty cool.
One last question, we'll wrap up. Advice for the new guys getting into the trade now. A lot different from when you first started. What's your advice to these guys now that are eager to get into the trade, line trade? What do they need to know?
What they need to know nowadays, first off, most of the guys have so much training prior to even starting their apprenticeship. You know, the electrical training, and most of the companies are asking for a class 1 in air now. Not that it's mandatory, but that's what they're requesting. That's a $14,000 bill. Yeah. The electrical training, I believe, is $12,000. But yeah, get your electrical theory behind you, get your driver's license behind you, get your first aid behind you. Of course, you'd want to have your climbing gear and talk to somebody or learn how to do a little bit of climbing prior to getting on board. Mechanical aptitude is a huge thing. Nuts and bolts, wrenches, tools, chaining up the trucks, you know, all those kind of things are good to have, especially in chaining in our country. But, you know, all that kind of stuff's good to get ahead of you, so that when you do get going, you're out of the gate. You're familiar with stuff. You're, you know, like learn the hardware and stuff.
You mentioned mechanical aptitude. What type of person do you need to be? Is best, not that you need to be, but what type of person?
You know, the best kind of guy is that's worked on cars as a kid, say 15, you know, been out doing some mechanical stuff, doesn't mind getting his hands dirty.
Got some work ethic.
Yeah, and some work ethic. Learn their strengths, you know, their body strengths, their mechanical strengths, you know, really because a lot of guys, like for me, example, I work with a lot of big guys, so they would do things different. I learned from Emilio, who was a little guy. I was a little guy. So I watched Emilio because I thought I'm going to have to do what he does because he's shorter and not 250 pounds.
You can't just grunt it out.
No. So I learned what Emilio did, and I watched Emilio smoke guys, just literally smoke big guys. And I learned how to, you know, but I had it positioned. So learn that kind of stuff, where your kind of shoulder strength, arm strength, blah, blah, blah. But just learn a general thing, you know, because there's lots of things you're going to have to learn about setting up trucks, cones, flags, your PPE, things like that. So have that all behind you so that you can concentrate on if you're setting poles and stuff like that. You know, of course, you're not going to learn how to set a pole prior to getting onto jobs. You don't have a digger floating around, but you learn that, you know, get on that digger and learn how to do that. The line truck operator course that we were putting on in Alltech was really good for that, to get those guys familiar. I didn't quite trust them setting hot poles yet, but it got them pretty good that they were in the yard doing stuff, and then you could mold them into doing that kind of thing. But I would say just be all full rounded. Full rounded, I guess, is, understand that you have to have line guards, the voltages, but electrical theory is a good one. Have that under your belt. Transformation.
Yep.
Like Dave Foster puts on a super good course of that transformation. Really, really easy to retain. As much as you use it, though. Like he does transformation, it's really good. Yeah, I get that, and I've learned it over the span of my lifetime. I just click, and it comes back to me. A lot of guys forget, and because you don't use it, right? You're not the utility guy, you're the construction guy. A lot of guys, when was the last time I hung a bank? Oh, about 2 years ago. Well, when was the last time you troubleshot a bank? Oh, about 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of stuff. But it's so many things for a young guy to be on top of now if you want to be head of your class. Yeah. Climbing's the big one. Really, climbing's always been the big one because they're putting you up poles right away.
Yeah.
Can't be afraid of heights.
And I always said to the guys too, I said, you know what, in all honesty, let them climb on the little ones first. Sure, they can climb up, but you don't need a guy up a 100-foot pole right off the bat. You can ruin a guy's career, spook him. Yeah. I've seen guys go up, can't come down. Had to go save
It's
them.
different.
So
45 is
sure,
different than
just
a
let
90.
them practice. They don't have to go 50 feet. You can 20 feet's plenty. Yeah. Go up and down, spin around, up and down, spin around, up and down, spin around, and then grow your confidence. You don't want to injure anybody. But mechanical aptitude's a big thing. How to, like hydraulic lines. What do I know about hydraulic lines? What if one breaks? What do I know about brake fluid? Oh, I can't put transmission fluid in the brake fluid. In the cars and stuff. I've seen that happen. Just little things, and of course hardware. But that'll come with being there. But your driver's licenses.
Apprenticeship program there, your math and physics is pretty, as a prerequisite. So, here in BC, I don't know if it's similar in the US or not, the apprenticeship programs. Here we do a trades trainee program for 6 months to a year, right?
That's a really good program.
So they get to get all of the things you're talking about there in that time frame, right? Yeah. And so there's a list of prerequisites there that you should have. And once they come in, if they've got those kind of mechanical abilities and athletic abilities and not afraid of heights and all of that kind of stuff, those are the guys that the companies look for to bring on. I think the veteran program would be ideal because those guys are used to outside work and used to working as a crew, got discipline, hard energy.
That's the key right there. Those guys
and all the rest, and they got all of the prerequisites of the person, and now it's just a matter of picking up some of the things they need to master the trade, and then away they go, right? So, I think those kind of things is good, and new guys coming in similar as a kid. I mean, some kids like to come in early, but they don't. With the graduated licensing now for driving, it makes it a little bit difficult because they can't be the one sitting in the back of the crummy. They need to be the guy working on. Driving, doing all the rest of the stuff. So it's a bit of a catch-22 there until they can get their full license and experience.
I like about the veteran thing, I've really noticed huge down the States was that those guys, and you just nailed it on the head, discipline and respect and maturity. They had all three of those. And I just could not believe how respectful they were down there. I just went like, wow. And that was one of the things that went ding. Those are the guys I'd be hiring. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're and all the ones I saw were all vets. They were all young vets. They all served.
I always added the physics portion too. So I'm glad you brought that up because, like, being able to recognize stored energy. Where is it? Right. Look, the bite.
You're in the bite.
It's such a big deal. But so many people just like. No understanding of angles and where there's like potential stored energy, and am I going to stand in the middle of this angle or the outside of the friggin' angle? You know what I mean? And whatever that is, or like where's
under a load, or what's going to happen if something lets go.
Yeah, there's a load being lifted. And you got two guys got their back to the load being lifted, and they're having a conversation. Turn, face the load. You can still have the conversation, but you're ready to something go sideways, right? Stay away from the side of the truck on a heavy lift. You don't want to be working off the side of the truck if you got a heavy. What if something malfunctions or something lets go? Just smarts in general, right? You know,
Because there's all of those, like there's pneumatics, there's air, there's hydraulics, there's like
it's all
electricity. It's all potential
heights.
energy, right? Heights, and it's being able to recognize those without thinking about it even, you know, and am I in the bite? Am I in the spot that if this energy is released, am I going to get licked?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I've seen guys
Sticky.
get flipped right
Sticky.
upside down.
It's 100% that, and that's why that exists.
That's
but
the
like,
best
if
thing
you can
ever.
grab that
Yes.
sooner in life versus later in life, you know, it'll probably save your life.
That's
you know
one of
what I mean?
the most, when I was with PAR, they brought that sticky up and I went, wow, that's the thing you need to talk about. Icy roads, going too fast. Oh, geez, you're texting and driving, you know, all these other things that come into play.
But that's what I mean. Like so many kids now, they don't understand because they're not even aware of the world around them. They're stuck in their phone, walking, looking at their phone, listening to headphones. They're trusting that these streets and the people driving on them are going to see them, and they can't. They don't hear. They take all of the senses away. You got to bring all the senses back. That's why I like to mention that, because bringing back, pay attention to your world around you.
A friend of mine says, this is kind of weird. I don't know how this came up, but he says, if you're at downtown Vancouver one day, he says, and you're by a four-way intersection, traffic controlled intersection, he says, just watch the lights and just watch what happens. And I says, what do you mean? He says, just go do it. And then phone me back. I phoned him back a day later and went, yeah, everybody runs red lights down here, like big time, like the light's red when they're entering the intersection. You know, it's just like, holy, and you just said that there. Oh, headphones on and staring at.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, really? You would trust that? Not me. I sure wouldn't. You know? And it's just like, it just now with these new rules that you got to stay a meter away from a cyclist, you know, like the rules and regulations. The other day there was a cop pulled a guy over up the highway here, and you're supposed to slow to, rules say you're supposed to change to a lane away and slow to 50K. Well, these guys are just right by, you know, and if I was that cop, I would have said, hey, you stay here, I'll be back in 10. I'd go pull those guys over and say, you know what? Like utility lights, that's another thing. When we have our lights on and you put your cones out, they don't slow down. They don't slow down for you.
Yeah.
You know. Crazy.
Well, guys, I'm sure we could talk for another 2 hours, but thanks for your time.
Yeah, you betcha.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, you bet. It's great.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye, everybody. I hope you guys got some value out of that episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to draw your awareness to a couple of other things. So we make these podcasts, yes, but it's not the only thing that we put out as far as content. Our social medias are full of valuable cuts from the podcast itself, as well as just a bunch of other educational stuff and entertainment. So go follow us at Powerline Podcast on all social media platforms, and then also YouTube. I don't think that a lot of you are aware of this, but we don't just load these podcasts onto YouTube. We also make vlogs, which are super educational, entertaining, great place to direct people to learn about the industry, learn about the trade, or just learn about what's going on within either Quanta or the Powerline industry in general. So hit up our YouTube channel. Again, it's at Powerline Podcast. You can catch those vlogs on there. We also load a bunch of other extra content in video form. We try to up the quality every time we do this. We try to up that quality. So hit up the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subbed to all those platforms. Appreciate you guys. Hope to see you again soon. We'll see you again soon. Peace.